can't even remember the first time I met Pam, but it had to be in the bookstore, and it had to be over Judy's Cookies or something back there. In the days before cell phones, the book loft was the place where the adventurous people in Wallowa County, who many of them were strung up and down Imnaha and the Snake River, would come to use the phone.
Or to change our babies.
Or change diapers, yeah, and eat cookies,
And
yeah.
use the toilet. A toilet.
Yeah, the indoor toilet. Yeah, it was quite a deal. Anyway, and Pam started writing, and I encouraged her from the beginning because I could see that she was a talent, and she had a hell of a story to tell. And she met Jack Shoemaker at a fish trap event, and Jack published her book. And I got to blurb it. You know what blurbing a book is? Yeah, okay. So I read my blurb again.
And what'd you think?
I like it. I didn't like it as well as I liked your dedication page.
Oh, we have to read that.
You will read
it.
You will read that. You will read the dedication page because it is,
You read your blurb.
well, if I can find it. Come on. Okay. How many of you remember the 70s here? Okay. Temperance Creek is a great adventure and a great place. And maybe most of all, it is a great love story. North Dakota girl with a wanderlust meets Oregon vet hiding out in remote Hell's Canyon on the Snake River with horses. In a flash, throws in her lot, and the two begin a journey through outrageous terrain and sheep camps, learning to live with and off the land and with each other. There are plenty of Vietnam vet stories out there and accounts of mid-century music, drugs, and community. Theirs is a different journey, one a few might have guessed at, but fewer would have dared. Pam Royce.
Wow, 7 years since I published. And to tell you the truth, I have not gone back to read my book, but I had to select a few things, hi John, to read today, and I sat down in an easy chair and started going through my book, and I thought, well, you know, it's kind of riveting. So when Rich asked me to speak today, it was good, and I thought about the Josephy. The show is livestock, and so I thought, what am I going to read? And I thought if he'd asked if the theme had been love, I would read When I Met Skip. If the theme had been war, I would have talked about Vietnam. If the theme had been desire, I would have read about apple cider. But the theme is about livestock, and to me, what came to mind was I wanted to talk about the people, because to me, the people and the livestock are you can't separate the two, because without the livestock, the people wouldn't be out there, and vice versa. So I made a few selections. I was going to tell you right off the bat that I'm really get nervous when I have to be in front of people, and my lungs kind of start to fill up, and then I forget to breathe. And it's sort of like self-destruct. It's going to happen, but hopefully that's not going to happen. So I'm going to start off with showing, DJ is going to help me show a little slideshow. And some of you may have seen this, I don't know. But because I'm going to be introducing a a lot of these characters in my readings today, I thought that I would give you a quick glance at them. It's just about 10 minutes, something like that.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. All your life you were only waiting for this moment to arise. Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these sunken eyes and learn to see. All your life you were only waiting for this moment to be free. Blackbird fly, blackbird fly, into the light of a dark black night. Blackbird fly, blackbird fly, into the light of a dark black night. Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. All your life you were only waiting for this moment to arise. You were only waiting for this moment to arise. You were only waiting for this moment to arise. You were only waiting.
There is a young cowboy who lives on the range. His horse and his cattle are his only companions. He works in the saddle and he sleeps in the canyons, waiting for summer, his pastures to change. And as the moon rises, he sits by his fire, thinking about women and glasses of beer, and closing his eyes as the dogies retire. He sings out a song which is soft but it's clear, as if maybe someone could hear. Good night, you moonlight ladies, rock-a-bye, sweet baby Jane. Deep greens and blues are the colors I choose. Won't you let me go down in my dreams and rock-a-bye, sweet baby James? Now the 1st of December was covered with snow. So was the turnpike from Stockbridge to Boston. Lord, the Berkshires seemed dreamlike on account of that frosting. With 10 miles behind me and 10,000 more to go. There's a song that they sing when they take to the highway, a song that they sing when they take to with 10.
Well, I left my happy home to see what I could find out. I left my folk and friends with the aim to clear my mind out. me all of the way to get there. Ooh. So on and on I go. The seconds tick the time out. There's so much left to know when I'm on the road to find out. Ooh. But in the end I'll know. But on the way I wonder. Through descending snow and through the frost and thunder. I listen to the wind come howl, telling me I have to hurry. I listen to the robin's song, saying not to worry. Ooh. So on and on I go. Seconds tick the time out. There's so much left to know when I'm on the road to find out. Ooh. Then I found myself alone, hoping someone would miss me. Thinking about my home and the last woman to kiss me. Kiss me. But sometimes you have to moan when nothing seems to suit you. But nevertheless, you know you're locked towards the future. Ooh. So on and on you go. The seconds tick the time out. There's so much left to know when I'm on the road to find out. Ooh. Then I found my head one day when I wasn't even trying.
Comes a time when you're drifting. Comes a time when you settle down. Comes a light, feelings lifting. Lift that baby right up off the ground. Oh, this old world keeps spinning round. It's a wonder tall trees ain't laying down. There comes a time you and I, we were captured. We took our souls and we flew away. We were right, we were giving. That's how we kept what we gave away. Oh, this old world keeps spinning round. It's a wonder tall trees ain't laying down. There comes a time. I wanna live
searching for a heart of gold, and I'm getting old. Keeps me searching for a heart of gold, and I'm getting old.
Listen, baby, ain't no mountain high, ain't no valley low, ain't no river wide enough, baby.
You need me, call me, no matter where you are, no matter how far.
Don't worry, baby.
Just call my name, I'll be there in a hurry. You don't have to worry, 'cause baby, there ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you, baby.
Remember the day I set you free? I told you you could always count on me, darling. From that day on, I made a vow I'll be there when you want me, some way, somehow.
'Cause baby, there ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you, baby.
Oh no, darling.
No wind, no rain, or winter's cold can stop me, baby.
No, no, baby.
'Cause you are my
You're ever in
goal.
trouble, I'll be there on the double. Just send for me, oh baby.
My love is alive, way down in my heart, although we are miles apart.
If you ever need a helping hand, I'll be there on the double, just as fast as I can. Don't you know that there
Ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough.
Okay. So I want to start with this quote by Wallace Stegner. The modern age knows nothing about isolation and nothing about silence. In our quietest and loneliest hour, the automatic ice maker in the refrigerator will cluck and drop an ice cube. The automatic dishwasher will sigh through its changes. A plane will drone over. The nearest freeway will vibrate the air. Red and white lights will pass in the sky. Lights will shine along highways and glance off windows. There is always a radio that can be turned to some all-night station, or a television set to turn artificial moonlight into the flickering images of the late show. We can put on a turntable, whatever consolation we most respond to, Mozart or Copland or the Grateful Dead. When you're out in sheep camp, there's a lot of things that you're not going to hear, including the ping of a new message on your telephone. and like Stegner said it so well. But this is something you might hear. This is a sheep bell. This is a horse bell. And there's one mare that wears this all the time. And as long as you can hear the bell, you know where your horses are. As long as you've got 4 or 5 sheep carrying one of these, you know where the sheep are. And I think this is where the term dinghy comes from. Those are a couple of things you're going to hear when you're in sheep camp. These are the staples. Some of the staples, I didn't bring them all. I thought about bringing a camp box and really showing you, but anyway, hominy. One must have fried hominy along with in your bacon grease. Evaporated milk, And, of course, the mystery meat. I thought about wearing these, but I thought that if I put them on, I wasn't sure if I was going to start itching and scratching. Everyday attire for a sheep herder. Okay, now that I've done that, so one of the things, a good friend of mine, after he read the book, he asked me, he says, well, there's no computers, there's no GPS, there's no phones. What did you do all day? Well, you know, we kept pretty busy. So I'm just gonna jump around here. I don't even know exactly at this point what I picked out, but I loved everything about the wall tent except setting it up. I loved the light filtering through the canvas, soft and yellow, the way it smelled both smoky like bacon and wood smoke and sour like horse sweat and spilled wine, how it filled with whatever outdoor smells followed us when we pushed through the flaps, horse urine, wool, sage, rain on dry grass. I loved the sound of rustling canvas, how when there was a pressure shift before a storm, the tent wall shuddered and shook, bouncing the frame. How there were no windows, and when you were inside with a snapping fire, the flaps secured and eating canned, milk-clotted peaches with a lantern gently swaying overhead, you felt wise and lucky to be eulogizing other tent dwellers like Genghis Khan, Karen Blixen, and Lawrence of Arabia. Every item within the tent walls was necessary, able at a moment's whim to be lashed onto the backs of long-eared mules and carried to a new location. When the tent was up, I hauled water, gathered kindling, started a fire, made coffee, and began sourdough biscuits for dinner. Meanwhile, Skip erected our portable teepee tent, cut firewood, filled the lantern with white gas, and saw to the stock. So this was a normal procedure when we were moving the sheep from the home ranch into the high mountains. And we set that tent up. Took it down, set it up, took it down, set it up. A lot of cussing went on. We rode, the sun hot on our faces, and we turned brown. To sit quietly upon the back of a moving horse was to fly. You could drop the reins briefly, stick out your arms, close your eyes, and soar. It was effortless. And because I was up high and didn't need to watch my feet, I could freely observe those things that surrounded me. The shining air beyond the brim of my hat, busy and alive with cobweb filaments, pollen, dust motes, and flying insects. Birds circling and calling to each other, the dog bounding in and out, her quivering nose flooded with 1,000 half-finished stories. The airborne, intoxicating, and shameless perfumes of wild rose and syringa, of horse sweat, saddle leather, tobacco, and pine needles so sweet I wanted to get off my mare and roll in them. Everything enhanced by the fresh smell of cropped green grass from the horses grazing as they walked. To breathe was to take in the eager earth, its passion and its power to bless, and I resisted the need to empty my lungs from one bursting inhalation to the next, leaving me giddy, dizzy, and inspired. I surrendered to joy. We experienced our presence emptying into this land of great distance, alone and together, this land we began to know so well by day and night. The canyons drew us into their wooded, sheltering draws to drink from their creeks and forage the hills that rippled like ribbons under watercolor skies. We welcomed its mystery, but longed to comprehend it. The mystery of wind and stones, roots and leaves, of pale bones, birdsong, and where the black bear sleeps. In the dark hours, we lay with nothing but a horse blanket between us and the earth, listening to the murmur of small things. When I tired of riding, I walked, tying my short string behind skips and tucking my mare's lead rope through a denim belt loop to free my hands. Crushing a pinch of wild sage between thumb and forefinger, I held it to my nose, releasing the sharp, pungent fragrance of these sacred canyons, of dew, sun, rock, and a simple kind of deliverance. From shady draws, we stepped back into the sun, my hands brushing the tops of seed-heavy grass. We passed through a landscape as comforting as a clasped hand, and around the next corner, everything changed, everything new, everything moving in one big gesture, one gesture informing the next. The wind would stir, and I felt stripped bare, grateful, and alive. It took 3 weeks for Morris, Skip, and me to reach Norway Basin, arriving through a field of wildflowers to make camp in a sub-alpine meadow. We found the camp water springing pure and glacier cold from a hole in the mountainside. Boiling up, it formed deep pools as it cut a swath through the grass, gaining momentum and volume as it went. We dipped our cups and tasted it fresh as wild strawberries. At 7,000 to 8,000 feet, we were within the tree line, high enough to expect freezing, snow still visible in the shady corners of the treeless slopes above, while daytime temperatures coaxed wildflowers into lavish displays. To quote the words of Andy Dahlquist, the Idaho sheep rancher Skip and I met in Hell's Canyon, the hardest part of the sheep herding business was deciding where to take your nap. It was time suspended and easy to forget we were actually getting paid and splitting the princely sum of $600 a month. Woo! When we quit herding, we started working on a cattle ranch, and our wages were bumped up to $900 a month, and a beef, and a house to live in, and a pickup to drive with gas provided as long as it was on ranch business. But we saved more money sheep herding than any place, any other time in our life, because that out of that $600, there was probably 580 that went into a bank account every month. And that's how we ended up buying that little cabin that we've got on the river.
The dedication.
Oh yeah, I didn't read the dedication yet. Oh shoot. Now I gotta start over. Okay, this is like one of my favorite things about the whole book. And a lot of times when you are writing, it's the things that you don't have to think about, they just pop out. And there's a lot of places in this book that were like that. And some of those places, the editor wanted to cut. And if you're a writer and you're an author and you're getting ready to publish, you got to hold tight fast to the things that you believe in, and no matter what anybody says. And so this is my dedication for Skip. When he learns I'm writing a story about us, he makes me a timeline. Spring, summer, fall, winter. 1976 through 1979, because he knows I'm lousy with dates. Even so, I get things all screwed up. When he reads the next to final draft, he says, The way you have it, Pam, we got married in 1977. Yes, I say, that's right. But we got married in 1978. Are you sure? So he makes me another timeline because I lost the first one. And this time, when I revise the book, I get things mostly in order. When I show him my dedication page, he says, "It's kind of long, isn't it?" "Not nearly long enough," I say, "but if you want me to, I'll stop here." I guess it kind of says it all, you and me, working things through, collaborating. Yes, I say. And it looks like I get the last word. Awake that night, listening to the restless sheep, the yipping dogs, and the phlegm-choked coughs of tobacco-smoking men, I thought of gentlemanly Morris, washing his morning dishes, quick to express thanks, never finding fault except once to say, "You're feisty, but you can't cuss properly." Morris teepee-tending each night next to the bedding ground to discourage the prowling cougars, bears, and coyotes, because there isn't a predator alive that doesn't like to eat sheep. How Morris's day ended at dark and began before first light, and how he could sew on a button or stitch his own cuts if necessary. I thought of Charlie, Mac, Morris, Virgil, and John, of the lonely vigil of canyon life without diversion. No music, women, booze, pickup trucks, regular haircuts, baths, Saturday night dances, or any contact at all with the outside world, save through the camp tender for months on end. How the payoff wasn't money, it was beauty. And I think beauty paid the spiritual bills too. I flirted with them all a bit, these lost boys, dedicated to their solitude and their sheep. Even Virgil, because he loved his big horse George with such devotion, doling out sugar cubes when he thought no one was looking. We'd split the band, and I was alone in back while Skip and Morris, with the help of a couple bellwethers, were somewhere in the middle trying to keep the lambs moving forward through the occasional oncoming vehicle, complete with barking ranch dog. I was thinking gloomily that Greg had taken quite a chance in trusting the entire year's cash crop to two men and the dubious resources of a female who couldn't cuss properly, when a small pickup drove up from behind and a sturdy but stunning olive-skinned woman with short, wavy dark hair and black eyes parked and got out. I dismounted. "You must be Pam," she said with musical accents, pumping my hand up and down. "Joe said I may find you here. You're so cute with the braids, the buckskin." "I'm Joe's Marge." Joe, the Basque herder from the troughs, and his wife Marge. A woman, a bona fide, unsentimental, blood and guts woman was the tonic I needed right then. Together we walked behind the lambs, talking of sheep and men, of the days when herders, loggers, farmers, and cattlemen filled the canyons and communities with people and vitality. Marge grieved the current state of Cherry Creek. She could not comprehend the new tenants taking what was a well-tended, productive ranch, a business that made her, Joe, Gus, and Juana a good living, and let it fall into such disrepair. "I can't go into Cherry Creek anymore. I make them stop at the gate before you go in. You can't even walk. The weeds have grown up so. I get so mad. Joe says they're going to put me in jail if I don't stop talking." She laughed, her dark eyes flashed, and she grew serious. "There are no decent Forest Service people anymore. No trust, no sense. This land does not belong to them. It belongs to the people." She turned to me as we slowly followed the sheep and declared, "Enterprise is dead now." She nodded her head. "Yes. People used to gather downtown, the pool hall, full of men, Saturday night dances, a Moto Day dress shop, and a Penny's too. Everything's changed." She touched my arm and we stopped walking. I thought she was going to say she had to leave, but she pointed to a red-tailed hawk turning in ecstasy above us and said, "I saw you." And I thought, here, she wants to do something. "You kind of look like a hippie, but you kind of have to be a hippie to be out here." We laughed, and I knew she'd made up her mind about me. We didn't know women's lib. We were already liberated, right? The men were busy. The women, we cutted the wood, fed the crews, fixed the trails. I nodded, and we started walking again. Joe, he worked all night during lambing, but he would peel the potatoes and put them in a bucket for breakfast. He'd make me a fire and put on a pot of water in the morning. Then he'd go to bed. The men, they listened. They respected us. I nodded, yes. This is what my generation sought, respect and equality. Marge didn't have to march or fight for these things. She was accorded them through necessity. In her world, freedom or social equality wasn't dictated by trends, movements, or something as flimsy as a fad. Joe and Marge cared little for formality or personal status. They focused on their fierce loyalty to one another and their countrymen, to helping each other secure a foothold in the world. They worked together and sifted things out the old-fashioned way. Cut the wood, fix the trail, feed the men. When she came to America, she wasn't bound by the same restraints and conventions as in Spain. In America, there was freedom. And if they applied themselves, yoked together side by side, they could get ahead. If there was a fence to be built, they built it. Shit to be shoveled, they shoveled it. They had their designated roles, and women's lib didn't change anything for Marge. She wasn't stereotyped, and she wasn't denied her wholeness, or like the men, her solitary longings. When my sister Juana and I had kids, we bought a house in town. We go back and forth because of school, but Juana, she stayed with the kids during lambing, and I'd be gone a month. Sometimes, from Cow Creek, I'd walk into Cherry Creek, 14 miles. I sing, I pray. Sometimes I take shortcuts. No one would have found me. She shakes her head bemused. And I think about these things now, but then I was looking for something easier. We stopped again, and she was looking back in the direction of her pickup. One year, when the kids were still young, we stayed down on the ranch. It was 6 months before we came out. Her eyes swelled with tears. I cried when we had to leave. Marge? I asked, because I could see a kinder, wiser, and more generous woman did not exist, and I had to know. Did you really pull the sheep testicles out with your teeth? Yes, I did some, she admitted, gauging my reaction. When I merely nodded, she added, the pliers were no good. You couldn't get a good grip like you could with your teeth. Oh my, I miss them so much. Am I too late? Am I getting too long? Is it okay?
Please don't stop. So did you use your teeth?
No, I did
No
not.
comment,
No, I did not, Craig. Okay, I've just got a few more things to read. I was hoping kind of that Greg and Gail might be here today, but out here, a shepherd's reputation depended on how well he or she carried out any number of tasks. For example, Charlie was known to be a hell of a herder, and Mac couldn't pack, but he could be trusted to take the roughest winter range on the Johnson allotment every winter and show up at shearing time with his ewes healthy and accounted for. Virgil was not only a dependable packer and horseshoer, but also could be trusted in a pickle to perform whatever services Greg wanted or needed, from baking a cake to sewing up a cut hand or a rip in the tent to getting an accurate count, sometimes. And John, well, John, according to Greg, could be the best and the worst at almost everything. God, there were times. If it had been legal to shoot a man, I would have shot John, Greg told us. He grinned tersely, recalling a still galling memory. One time, John was sent to Pleasant Valley to rendezvous with someone, little Charlie maybe, to bring the bucks in. This was something John had done before. It only took one man to do it. But when he got there, and before he made the handoff, he saw the mail boat coming. So he unbridled, unsaddled Susie, and got on the boat. Just like that. Rode it downriver to Lewiston. He paused, shaking his head. The first inkling we had was when Susie turned up at the Temperance Creek gate without him. We figured he was laying out there somewhere hurt. Greg had organized a search party, sent a couple of men horseback into the hills while he took his jet boat around to Pleasant Valley. We found John's saddle and bridle under a tree by the river and the sheep scattered in and about the rims for miles. It took us 2 lousy weeks to gather those bucks. A couple of weeks later, Greg said, John called me from Lewiston, Idaho, drunk and broke and wanting his job back. I went down with my boat and picked him up, never said a word the whole way up the river. If I'd gotten started, I wouldn't have been able to stop. Okay, let's get that one. Oh, and I got this one.
Pam, why don't you do one more and leave a little time for questions?
Okay. This one. The blanket of winter lay over us, white, deep, and still. It was Haukai. I'm going to say that wrong. Nez Perce for season when new life begins in the cow elk. The bare trees stood rigid, roots reaching into the frozen ground, while small birds fluffed feathers and shifted from foot to foot on cold branches, eyes closed in concentration. The stiff and dormant grasses neither rustled nor parted for field mice driven deep below, chewing roots and living on prudent stashes of seeds in tangled earthen runs. No sound from fleece-blanketed sheep. Wait a minute. Legs and noses tucked into dreams of sweet clover and yellow buttercups, or whatever it was that sheep dreamed about. Even the reliable ding from the bell horse was quiet as the mules and horses dozed. We were camped near the Wisner homestead, roughly 4 miles above the Temperance Creek Ranch. It was the middle of the night, and I was awake. Rising, I left Skip's soft snores and Puss's dreamlike twitching beneath our bed and slipped on my work boots. Leaving the laces untied, I stepped naked into a glittering world of frost and starlight. As I gazed upward, the immense stillness of the slumbering world wrapped itself around me. I paused to listen and to wonder. A few feet from the tent flap, I was aware of my vulnerability, my dependency on fire to stay warm, prepare food, our shelter, but a flimsy lining between us and survival. How just a few amenities even the odds between the stark natural laws of the wilderness and our continued canyon sojourn. I wasn't sure how to pray, but felt suddenly compelled. We are here, I whispered, tilting my head back. Don't forget us. Silently, I petitioned for the return of spring, knowing that until God became more than a mythic figure with whom I sometimes bargained, if you do that, I'll do this, I would only know him in part, that whatever God was, it was more than I could imagine, that whatever the future held for me, I would only know a fragment at a time, and for now, this was enough. The silver fingers of the cottonwoods framed the moon above, a gray wisp of smoke curled from the stovepipe, and the dingy canvas of the tent appeared washed clean in the moonlight. Okay, I'll open this up to a Q&A. If anybody's got any questions.
I remember when, I think it was in the fall, we were out for a morning walk with corgis, and I remember you said you were going to start writing some of your life stories for the kids, and you were going to make a collection for the kids. That's my memory of it. So I'm just glad it went from that collection for the kids to a wider audience.
Yeah, well, without Jack Shoemaker or, somebody to publish it, it might have stayed, in the family. But I will tell you that my grandchildren are not allowed a copy of the book until they turn 18.
So how did it go from the collection to the published book?
The collection of stories to the, well, I just started writing down the stories that had the most heat for me, the ones that I just needed to get on paper. And then it was just excruciating to get them in order. But and I decided at a certain point to go chronologically instead of randomly. And so then I had to tie everything, where's the timeline came in that I needed. Yeah.
Was your place close to Doug Tippett's?
You're talking about Doug Barr?
Yeah.
No. No. Doug was downriver, like a long ways, like 20 miles, something like that. Ann?
So you have to tell that when Luke, their son, read the book, he said it had too much sex. So was that
Do I get to tell that or not? What? Go ahead, Ann.
it was the Duckett stove. We talked about your stove.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So Duckett was a blacksmith that lived on the river. He ran a actual stagecoach. Stagecoach. Yeah. Drove the stage, not a stagecoach, but a what? Stage line. And then but a sled in the wintertime, and once a week, I think. And I'd really like to look up the what the route was. But anyway, he cut hair. He was the town blacksmith. He built these stoves. He pumped gas. And he was a gardener, a fantastic gardener, lived to be about 105, I think. Anyway, he built that stove that every sheep, it was an absolute necessity to have in sheep camp.
Duckett stove.
A Duckett stove.
He made the sharpshoes too.
Yes, he did. Yep, he did.
And he'd stand up in front of the school on election day and say, "Hear ye, hear ye, the polls of Imnaha are now open."
Hi, Shar. Billy.
It's hard sometimes to grasp what a big area you floated around and down here. I mean, you can see it from the photographs. But could you give us an idea of the mileage? I mean, going from one sheep camp to the next, you had kind of a cycle every year, right?
Right.
Can you give me an idea of the mileage of the whole cycle, one cycle, and then maybe, did you do it twice or once a year?
Right. So it was a cycle. So you start in one place and end up in the same place. So when we're trailing the sheep to the high mountains, that was about 10 miles a day. That's about as much as sheep can be pushed. And that took like probably 3 weeks to get into the high mountains, so 300 miles, something like that. And then then you would, move camp within the high mountains, following the grass, the fescue and all the different grasses, and then we would end up on the upper Imnaha for tagging, and then go from there into Enterprise and that was a 4-day trip. Quite a few, 1,000 miles, I don't know, round trip, something like that.
You took the sheep down into Enterprise?
Yep, not just the lambs.
Just the lamb.
To go, so we used to run them into the sale yard.
Okay.
And there would be buyers there, but yeah, we trailed them all, not in trucks. We trailed them in, and with a few like bell sheep, and so that because the lambs were really nervous without their moms and being separated, then driven into town. Yeah, it's quite a trip. That's when I met Marge on the road there, that piece that I read.
And you were there 4 years?
Yeah, almost.
That's like 4,000.
Well, yeah, and some of that, Skip and I were just, riding, adventuring.
Is there a piece in your book that discusses the mileage? That's what I didn't understand you do that. I mean, I kind of know that country, and I couldn't believe that you would.
I should get a map and figure that out sometime. That'd be interesting. Yes.
Could you share with us the recipe for your crackers?
You know what I think? I think I'd rather give a class, like just do some place. We could just roll some out and do it together. How's that sound?
Yep, sounds great.
I don't know, somewhere.
Did you always have, more than just you and Skip and Luke, you had this gang that you refer to in your reading? You always had other people too, helping?
When
You were doing all of it.
herding and
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah.
Well, Jody and Dole Zaccarino would come in and out, and then every time there was an event, then there would be extra cooks, and but for the most part, it was you had the herder and the camp tender. And Skip and I, because we were a couple, we were, we camp tended together, and then we herded together. But it's solitary, really solitary life. Yeah, I miss it. I am so grateful that I got that experience. Did I miss anybody over here?
Did you say how many sheep were in your batch?
So it was usually about 1,200 ewes and then that many lambs, so over 2,000.
And it's just the two of you?
Two. Two and some good, if you got a good dog, that's about all it takes. What do you think, Rich?
What I was going to tell people, some people brought their books for Pam to sign. We're down to one book here, but we'll order some more.
I'll take that.
You. God, we screwed up. There you go.
I'll buy it. I'll buy it.
What? Oh, we have 4 more?
Oh, yay, going once, going twice. So I can sign books. If there's any other just question that somebody just needs answered, one more question. Nick?
Are you still packing that bullet around?
I am. Part of it. So I can sign, but if somebody brought their book and they want me to sign, but there is, I mean, I have gotten so much publicity. Rich, for one, I just feel like I've been in every paper. Thank you, Rich. But when I published, my publisher said, it might be a really good idea if you had a book trailer. So a friend of mine that is into doing that, making shorts and movies and stuff like that, he put this together. It's 2.5 minutes. And I don't know if you've seen it or if you haven't seen it, but if you want to look at it, you can, and I'll just be over somewhere signing books if anybody has a book.
They do, but let's go ahead and play it.
Okay.
If anybody has to.
Yeah. It's been 40 years, and I can still smell the wood smoke of his campfire on the day we met. The frying pan of fish he held over the coals. Remember the trill of a canyon wren. The Snake River beside us, coursing green and full. The narrow foot trail leading, disappearing through the tall grass. It was spring in Hell's Canyon, and life was in and around and beating through us. I'd known him less than a day when he asked, "Why don't you come with me?" His eyes bright with anticipation. Behind him, 2 horses grazed the new grass greening the steeply sloped hillsides. I hesitated, feeling conflicted because well-brought-up girls like me finished college, pursued careers, and opened checking accounts. And yet, I stood there in the sun having been offered the thing I truly wanted, to find or claim something, someone for myself. What would we be doing, I asked. Maybe herd a few sheep, meet some real characters, he said. See some pretty country from the back of a horse. In retrospect, I couldn't have been more naive about men or about love. All the world was in that one question. All that I might be, all that I was, and time, the only thing that mattered. Okay, yes, I answered. How long will we be gone? Well, until we get back.